الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. The subject of rizq, as we heard, the many means, whether it's the physical means, which is an obvious one, but also has certain things to be observed from the wahy, from the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the religious means, the means that got to be known from the wahy, from the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this gives us this concept of that this is part of the struggle in which a person would take the means to increase his iman, and how everything is related to the purpose of this life, which is the worship of Allah, that requires al-iman, requires to believe in the unseen. This is the most basic characteristics of the believers. Belief is not even ever to be perceived unless it's believing in the unseen. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the believers in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, those who believe in the ghaib, in the unseen. So always the subject of a rizq, or the provisions, or the money, or the physical matters that everybody knows by their own instinct, it's very obvious. They're always going to be a test and a trial with these obvious matters versus the deen of Allah, the wahy from Allah. One day, either or, which one the person should choose. The believers should not have any doubt or any dispute whatsoever. You see how the people of the dunya, the disbelievers, for example, if you challenge the physical means, they'll say that you're crazy. This is what they know. يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, they know the apparent things of this dunya. This is a normal thing for a human being. But the wahy revelation from Allah comes in such a way that the believers, if the wahy from Allah, if this is a command of Allah, if this is the order from the Prophet ﷺ, the physical means to them, if it either or, means nothing. They have to submit themselves to the command of Allah, because He's the creator of the physical means. He will make their physical means easy for them if they would obey the orders of Allah. So you don't have to exert yourself to try to bring the two opposite, or the two opposite things together. Ya Rabbi, my salah or my rizq, or my obligatory salah. Alhamdulillah, it's not 50 salah, 5 salah a day. So the salah or my provisions, it's not an issue of dispute or concern or confusion. It's the salah. That's it. وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا لَا نَسْأَلُكَ رِزْقًا نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكَ. It doesn't mean that you'll starve to death. Of course not. And you see that it's a very obvious thing. It's a very easy matter. So, but it's always the conviction, the certainty in the heart, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the hearts. And imtihan al-qulub, to test our hearts with this, is such an important matter. And you can go to the extreme of, we're always should not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be tested, but rather we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with al-afiyah, the strength. If someone is given $1 million, but just to commit a small, very tiny sin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the heart. Is it going to be the confusion? It's just one sin and then I repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or there's no way. This is the command of Allah. How can I disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That strength of the heart is required, and it has a physical effect. And this is how the strength of the heart when it comes to matters of rizq, or anything of matters of this dunya. And this is the tawakkul ala Allah. This is relying upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are ayat of the Quran, a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that always mention this. One of which, as we heard before, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا الْمَالِ لِإِقَامِ الصَّلَاةِ. We brought down al-mal, wealth, money, anything that has a value, to establish the salah. This is the mean, and this is the goal. And the famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith of Abi Kabsha al-Anmari in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and others, it's a beautiful hadith that talks about 3 things and then 4 things. The second part of the hadith talks about إِنَّمَا الدُّنْيَا لِأَرْبَعَةِ نَفَرٍ. The dunya is for 4 types of people. And the 4 types of people is based on al-mal wal-ilm. The first one, إِنَّمَا الدُّنْيا لِأَرْبَعَةِ نَفَرٍ. رَجُلٍ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ مَالًا وَعِلْمًا. So the first case, a man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him money and knowledge. So what does he do with the knowledge and the what does he do with his wealth, with the knowledge? فهو يتقي الله فهو يتقي فيه ربه. He has the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in using his money by the taqwa of Allah, because he has the ilm. And the ilm is not information, as we all know. Al-ilm is the knowledge with the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that a person would apply it. So يتقي الله عز وجل في ماله. He shields himself from the punishment of Allah with his wealth. He knows. Then after that, ويصل فيه رحمه. And he is kind to his relatives and kin and kith with this knowledge that he has. So he uses his wealth for whatever means of goodness. And وَيَعْلَمُ لِلَّهِ فِيهِ حَقًّا. The third one, as the hadith says, and he knows in his wealth there is right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in his wealth. The wealth is by Allah, and it's for Allah. Everything is by Allah. He's the owner of all things. He knows that because this is مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ, from what we provided for you. But it's by the mercy of Allah that it's only a portion, a very small portion of the wealth. This is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this wealth. So he knows that, and he would give his zakah being pleased that this is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to do. Not just to give the zakah. When it comes to the zakah, especially the zakah, the heart has to be, and we need to test our hearts, that a person takes from his money to give the zakah with his heart pleased with this, because this is not your money. That you have no right to it whatsoever. This is something that belongs to someone else. This is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most rich. But it's to be given to the poor, it's their rights. And that's why when we see the ahkam of the zakah, we don't do a favor for the poor. When you give zakah money to the poor, you're not doing them a favor. They are doing you a favor. This is the portion of the zakah. And therefore it is not permissible for you to choose what's best for the poor. So I'm going to give them food, blankets. Can we give the zakah money to organizations where they can give food and blankets and all of this? It is not permissible. This is the original ruling. Unless there is major exceptions, and then we need a fatwa from major ulama if it's a situation where there's no way the money would reach. But the rule is here, it is not permissible. Why? Because it's the right of the poor. And the example that is always mentioned, if you work for someone and you worked hard for your money, then at the end of the month, he gives you food, not money for your salary. He says, I know better what you need more. Your family needs food more than money. Right? What would you do in this case? This is your right. So the zakah is the right of the poor. It's not a favor. It's not that you know better if he takes it and buy candy with it, it's up to him. Or even with matters of medicine and things like this, or hospitals and the like of this. It is not permissible. A poor, this is valid, and actually I've seen situations like this. Someone that is poor, and if he goes to this hospital that is run by charity, he needs a surgery in his legs, for example. And he needs it, direly need it. But he's very poor. If you give him the money, he won't do the surgery. He has something more important than his legs. He has kids, for example, to spend on, or something else. So the point here is, again, going back to the subject, that because of the ilm, that person used his money according to the ilm, not according to, this is my money, like become like Qarun. This is the first case. The second one, رجل أتاه الله عز وجل علما ولم يؤته مالا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him knowledge, but he didn't give him money or wealth. So فهو صادق النية. His niyyah is sincere. That if he has the money, he will do بعمل فلان. He will act with his money like the first case. فهو بنيته. So the hadith is, he is according to his niyyah. فأجرهما سواء. The rewards, both of them are the same. The first and the second. And the second, because of his ilm, which shows the superiority of the ilm, the knowledge. Without it, this is the second or the last two categories of people, and the entire world is these four categories of people. إنما الدنيا. This dunya is for four types of people. The third one, رجل آتاه الله عز وجل مالا ولم يؤتيه علما. A man, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him money, wealth, lots of wealth, but no knowledge. So what happens? فهو يخبط في ماله. He is just going left and right with his money, meaning that he disobeys Allah. If it comes to be matters of obedience, no problem. Something good, something bad, no knowledge. So one day this, one day that, spread corruption on the face of earth. فهو بأخبث المنازل. This is the lowest of all levels. He has money and no knowledge. The knowledge is the fear of Allah, That is part of the knowledge that makes a person fear Allah. And this is, many people are upon this. So they waste their money to spread corruption on the face of earth. And the fourth category, someone that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala لم يؤته مالا ولم يؤته علما. No knowledge and no money. So he is, according to his intention, he says if he has money, he will يعمل بعمل فلان. He will do like the third one, the one that spread corruption on the face of earth and sins and so on. فهو بنيته فوزرهما سواء. They are in the same level of sin. So that last case, poor guy, nothing, no dunya, no hereafter. All of that is because of his niyyah, because of his intention, because of the lack of knowledge. Because of the lack of knowledge, he wasted his life and the hereafter. So when you think of these 3 or 4 categories of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created, it's always that struggle between the physical means versus the ilm, which is the wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What should be always apparent and victorious and strong is the matter of ilm. And this is what our job is, to acquire this knowledge, to increase our iman, and the physical means to take the physical means. But when we raise our children, when we have the concern in our hearts, what is the concern? The concern is just to have status and wealth and so on, and that's it, and later we'll deal with matters of knowledge. No, you waste your life, you waste the life of others, but rather to have the ilm first. It doesn't mean that a person is a alim. Either a person, he has the knowledge, or he has the people of knowledge before he do anything. And what directs him, what moves him, what make him get a job, what make him study, what make him do this, spend this, do that, whatever there is with materialistic matters, is based on the deen of Allah. Before he does anything, he knows this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with. This is then a person will have the perfect combination by the mercy of Allah. So that's why, again, the matter of rizq is not just a simple matter or something that is only deals with the halal and the haram and that's it. It's related to the core of the religion. It's related to the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is al-Razzaq, for example. Related to the belief in the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Related to the purpose of this life. So that means we take care of this matter so that it's not all the time a matter of struggle. It's already fixed. It's figured out. The objective is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The rizq, don't worry about it. It will come. Take the best of the means that you can. Be the best in your profession. Be the best in your studies. And as mentioned before, the statement of Ali radiallahu anhu, قِيمَةُ كُلُّ مْرِئٍ مَا يُحْسِنُ. The value of every person is what he is good at. So that means if you're good at something, this is your value. So be good in whatever position that you're in, but with the condition of ilm, with the condition of having the fear of Allah, so you can be the best doctor, the best dentist, the best engineer, and be the best, because this is being as a Muslim, but without compromising the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in any way or case by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam.